Roll call.
Yes, I do.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion second to approve the agenda. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Any public comment?
That's right.
Consent agenda. Questions on that? Again, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, signal by saying aye. 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 Motion carries. Reports. Any questions on the reports? Back to the regular agenda. Item presentation.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for having me. I am Jenna Ennis, manager at Smith Schaefer Associates. Just want to thank the commission for the opportunity to work with you guys again this year. It is a pleasure working with Keith and Kathy every year. They definitely are responsive and get us information quickly and make our jobs a lot easier. I'm going to go ahead and walk through the PowerPoint. Feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions as we go. It should be pretty straightforward and kind of recast the year. So starting with the electric fund operations, as you can see, that's been pretty consistent over the last 3 years. Revenues generally have been higher than expenses, a little bit. Operating expenses were a little bit higher this year. Overall net position increased by 512,000 in 22. But there was an overall decrease in the electric fund this year, which was primarily due to an adjustment related to the rate stabilization, which is a deferred revenue delay, but no other impact otherwise to the operations. So outside of that piece, it was an overall increase to the fund. Moving on to cash, as you can see here, we just kind of have a summary of the cash flows for the year. There was a lot more capital expenditures for the capital improvement plan that's happening, as you are all aware of. So that took up more cash. And then obviously there was the debt issuance for that capital improvement project. Everything else is pretty standard compared to prior years, but as you can see, there was quite a bit of increase. Moving on to debt. As I already mentioned, you had debt issuance this year for the capital improvement plan. So there is a new note that came into play in 2023. All other debt, though, was either paid off on time or paid. So, the commission has maintained a strong position in managing their capital as well as being from that. The next chart then is kind of looking at your purchase power and usage over the last 4 years. As you can see, that's been, pretty steady and consistent. There was a little bit of a dip in 22. I think part of that is we talked about just kind of switching to the new meters and kind of getting things calibrated again. But things are consistent, like I said. And then overall, the line loss percentage has been pretty steady, but it's been in decline from last year. So that is a good indicator that things are going in the right direction. Nice to see less line loss. Does anyone have any questions on the electric fund? I'll move on to the water fund operations then. All right, so as you can see on this one as well, operating revenues continue to exceed expenses. Again, pretty consistent from year to year. Things our job's easy when stuff is pretty much status quo. There was an overall increase in the net position of 288,000 in 23. So just a little bit down from 22, but again, consistent increases and good management of revenues over expenses. Moving on to the water fund and cash position again. So just to recap, a lot less activity happening in the water fund during the current year. So there was a little bit of expenditures for the capital outlays, and some debt service payments, and then purchases of fees this year is what that reduces. Overall, it was a small decrease in the net cash to the water fund, but other revenue expenses were still strong, so nothing concerning from our viewpoint. Moving on to the water fund debt, similar to the electric fund, you guys were able to pay off as scheduled for early on some of those bonds, and you just have, one water revenue note left. That's at under 810,000. And then the last slide, so again, it's real high level. There's the net pension liability that we have to prepare on, that's related to pension employees contributing to the para fund. And as you can see, that liability is dependent on actuarial valuations. So it kind of has been swinging from year to year. The state's been putting in extra money. But this kind of breaks down the portion, then that's electric versus water. And so primarily the net pension liability for the commission is in the electric fund, but there is split between both for the. So real quick, but does anyone have any questions or anything they want to talk about or look into?
I have a question. By using the, by funding the, reserve account, that triggered showing a loss, does that affect?
I don't think it should affect the bond rating, from my experience. I don't see that.
I don't, I just don't know the answer to that. And
So I would want to double check into that, but from what I know, and based on it, look into a lot of other factors, that one instance shouldn't matter. That rate stabilization adjustment is essentially just deferring revenue is what you guys are doing. So you use your revenue to just basically recognize that at a later point when you decide to spend it. So it shouldn't affect your bond rating, but I don't want to say yes for sure, but I don't check.
Could you check that out? Because I really, I mean, if we could just switch our accounting methods so we don't. That should be.
Yeah, I'll check into that. I'll look at you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Following up on that be, that take the switch or accounting methods, and took that volume table.
Well, it needs to be, have to be on a commission order. I'm assuming we have to just recognize all the revenue funds. At point that's in the switch over.
Yeah,
Keep everything going.
well, it would depend. I mean, it's, if you didn't want to recognize it all at once, we could do it in a series and release it depending on, if it's allocated for expenditures or you want to designate it for something, but otherwise, yeah, I would do it one time. But that would depend on it. What the bond people say, rating, see what they have to say about that. What makes sense for the commission, the financials.
To the chair's point, I mean, with phase two, we are looking at going up. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's helpful to know.
if, and I think that's one of the sensitivity to bond rating is if when we go out for bonds again, we have to redo our bond rating. And they look at that and see that in the audit, it says we operated at a loss, but it doesn't feel like we did because the money's there. We just don't want to see the bond. Create the wrong impression.
Right.
To those agencies.
Yeah. We'll check on it.
You know, on the bottom, there any other, maybe question for later, if they do, what other ramifications, put it down, place it. You probably can't.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know.
If you cross that bridge, we'll try to find out the answer to that question.
You don't want to.
First, find out if it's an issue. So
We would need a motion from the commission.
second, we want to wait until we get that answer. Once we accept that audit.
Unfortunately, our audit goes into the city's audit. And the city has to file on July 1st. So if we don't approve our audit, then it creates problems on the city side. But I guess my recommendation would be approve the audit as is. Like how we're currently operating. Because even if we decide to redefine the rate stabilization, you can't do that. Seems to be, you have to do that. So I don't know that, regardless of what the answer is, I don't think that you did anything to have. Great. We were this, what we changed it.
Devon's. Where that approved it. So we have approved.
Yeah.
Report. And we change it.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing is, it is correct, given the definitions that we're using. Also be represented. So unfortunately, I think it is what it is. But going forward, especially as we continue through the cap plan, we're going to use up some of that money for phase 3. As we rebuild it, I think the commission definitely wants to make sure that we're rebuilding it the right way. Also, that this really happen.
Right, well, we have a motion on second.
Can I ask a question quick? What do you submit for your bond? So like mid-year, do you submit the audit or do you submit like current financial statements? Or both?
I don't know the answer to that. I was more concerned. I think the concern is more about when we go out for our next round of audit.
Yeah, that's what I was asking is what you give them.
And then we gave them copies of the audits.
Okay, but not current financial statements? Or do you do anything current from your current system? Okay, that's just the latest audit.
I don't know if you know from SP Global and another on state, but SP Global, which is in Louise, they just want the audited books. They just want last year's audit. So as soon as we get our audit, I have even out on my calendar that I need to send those financial statements for calendar year ending 2023.
Okay.
That's all I care about.
So if the answer was yes, it would affect our monitoring. When we switched it, we have dated that to maybe.
Can't retroact. Once you close your books, you change your accounting.
So then, yeah, so then to the chair's point, we've done journal adjustments. We want to, I mean, I don't want to delay you folks, but I guess we could in theory reverse the
Yeah,
stabilization transfer as to being as.
yeah, yep. I mean, because you dictated that transfer. I was gonna say, I mean, you have a resolution to have the fund, but it is up to you to change and adjust it. And I think that you can do retroactive resolutions to make that adjustment.
Okay.
And to that point, you do the city's financial statements as well. And so, I mean, it's a matter of me just changing 2 numbers on their financials. I mean, not ideal, and I have to tell for their, let's say, reporting form. So we could, in theory,
So
if
I
I
guess
get
that's
the
not
bond
an
answer
answer
fast.
discretion, I guess, I just spoke because we do some adjustments based on the audit after December 31st. We could go back and then reverse the rate stabilization account allocation, put that back into cash until we answer that question. And then that'll, well, that number to positive, you have to regenerate. the report.
Yes, because we have issued your report, we have to reissue.
Could
So we
they,
have to take back my financial statements that I brought with me today, but it is certainly not.
could they approve the audit with that change? Or would they have to wait until you review the audit and then approve?
I would be comfortable with them approving the audit with that change.
Okay.
I mean, that's in line with Robert's rules and your guys' commission rules, but I'm
No,
not comfortable with that.
that's within our.
Yeah, and I just hate to see it cost us. Budget.
Yeah.
You know,
Because of the
time and just-
I need to hear there's on issues.
Next year. Can't remember. Can you remember? I can't remember.
Well, 24 is all phase 1. So phase 2 wouldn't start until, I mean, they're working on it right now, the planning and engineering.
Design.
But
but going out for bids on it and bonding, I don't know how long that would take and when we would start to order stuff and when it would show up. So, I mean, we're already in July.
Right. So it might not be till 26.
Well, my only comment would be that,
We might have 24's audit done by then anyway, not the money in the
well,
water,
my,
but
my thought is you let the 23 audit lie and then you get the answer and you can always say, hey, we're taking money out of that rate stabilization fund dollars and put it, I mean, basically your rate stabilization fund is, you're almost operating it as if it's a savings account. I mean, so if they look at it that way, they need bonding. You know,
You're not a cash asset.
it should be a cash asset, not a negative ding in terms of, you know, because you ran a fund.
Well, I
ran-
understand common sense, just not common, right?
Well, the thing is that, so George Erickson, so your next bond issuance, George, I was curious because your bond issuance and, you know, he's having us enter into this facilities credit enhancement program. Which must be a new program for I don't know if it will be qualified, but that would be something that you might want to look into because that helps increase your bond rate as well. That's on our council agenda. Concerns for that. There's some public facilities. The credit something, the enhancement program. Something with that. It's in a, when you get the packet, you can take a look at it. Yeah. We have a resolution next, tomorrow's agenda. But he brought it up 2 weeks ago when we talked about issuing bonds for the lift station, so. I don't know if that qualifies for, but it could qualify for some of the water stuff.
Yeah.
No, I think Jeremy.
We lost. Motion to. Also,
Well, so the choices are, based on the discussion that I heard, was approve the audit estimate or approve the audit, a reversing of the rate stabilization transfer. So that the whole idea would be that way the audit should not pretty long.
Anybody else in the comment?
Well, Jenna said that they're comfortable with your with modification that meets their needs. And then they can just get that changed down, update the city's audit.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway,
Approve the audit with,
A reversal of the rate
Yeah.
stabilization.
out. Yep. Okay.
And that's enough then?
Yep.
All right, we have a motion, second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
No, I don't have a written report, so.
We were here.
Yeah, no.
All done, so you, bus.
Yes, you should.
I'm sorry, if I can just.
Sure.
Okay, memo 2415, in your packets, staff, Scott and I, have been really kind of exploring some different strategies, to address, the, elevated PFAS level that, that were reported, both coming as a both a short and long-term strategy. Because we're really talking about well nine. In the short term, what we've done is we have converted well nine to a lagging well. So it's only called upon during peak periods, such as when there are large irrigation loads or if we run into some sort of community emergency, like fire and stuff like that. We've been spending a lot of time trying to increase our knowledge base. There's been conferences, webinars, and even a lot of conversations just with our peers and colleagues, all consultants. We've been actually reached out to Bolton and Bank. We've been very impressed with their team. They have a deep understanding of PFAS. And we met with them. They've got strong connections with the appropriate regulatory agencies as well. And have been very proactive in trying to think through solutions while we adjusted to our financial constraints. Staff did receive a proposal from them, kind of outlining a four-step evaluation process that they recommend. The first phase is to evaluate our existing data and review our current treatment operations at both plants. The thought was maybe there are some things we can do at treatment plant one where there is no PFAS. We have not identified any PFAS with that one, but we do have a manganese issue. So we deal with that, but maybe there's ways we can optimize that so we can increase the output of one and minimize the use on nine. There just might be some operational issues that won't make us explore. In order to get started, they recommended that we just do a phase one, which would be invoiced on an hourly basis up to $14,750. And then we can pursue additional phases depending upon the outcomes of those findings. And Bolton and Mason also pledged to work very closely with staff to identify a solution for grant funding wherever possible. So after evaluating all of our different options, staff's recommendation is to partner with Bolton and Bank to evaluate and optimize our current operations as a first step in developing a long-term PFAS reduction plan at a cost of $40,000. That goes back out here to answer the question.
And if my mind, it might have been brought up before. The Department of Health, that's the regulation.
Yes, the Department of Health regulates all the public water systems.
So they're not gonna, we came up, we said you're gonna minimize the use of water on well line because our higher contamination level. So at the tap, the PFAS is maybe not even there because of that. But that's not gonna be allowed.
So when the Department of Health,
No, I guess, you know, I'm going.
yeah, when the Department of Health looks at it as a point of entry into the system. So they will look at what the reading is, it's actually not at the well, it's at where the plant is interconnected. So that's why with us doing the lagging on well nine, we're basically blending. And so that the water coming out of treatment plant two is much lower than what well nine is by itself. And that's how the Department of Health looks at it, because even though it's all one system, you know, it's still water that moves around. And I can't say what is that each tap, you know, that can vary. But so that's why the Department of Health looks at it as a point of entry. But if we can, again, focus on.
Yes,
Yeah.
the two plants are considered separate spots, and we can't ensure the equal blending of plant one to plant two throughout the system. Plant one tends to push more north, plant two pushes up behind it, so there's no real specific way we could ever sort of tie the two plants together that way, doing it correct. If we had wells 8 and 9 running at the same time, we could get a consistent blend off of there if one was way down, the other one was borderline, we could balance that out. Run the two wells at the same time to get that entry point well below the recommendation.
I get my vote if I do that, is there gonna be a component in our capacity in the issue? And following you on. And feedback level, we can't change that. come into. Well, but I do plan meeting and what we're talking about. Does that, that help mitigate the health issue?
Yes, that's why,
User,
and that's why Department of Health looks at it as a point of entry.
so they will get, they
Well,
will cut to the back.
yeah, again, they look at what are the levels of the water that's going into the system. So if you blend that with, in our case, 2 different wells, you know, if we had expanded that, it could be 4. What is the average that's going in?
As far as testing and testing each individual, I don't know for sure if they've taken we call this many gallons out of this one, this many out of this one, if they're balancing them 2 out as an average. I don't think that they're going quite there yet.
They're not at the moment, but they understand that that's probably the right way to do it. So it wouldn't surprise me if in a year or 2, they do look at it in terms of flow rates.
And well 9 haven't, since we've done that change, I don't think we've had to call on well 9 to run together with, especially with the last been nearly here. We haven't taken that big summer spike yet, but I think even with that spike, I don't think we're gonna, I think we can, all things going good, we're gonna be able to keep that in very minimal usage through the summertime here, wintertime, it will be an issue. Meaning that.
And well 8 does not exceed from all the tests we've done, the value does not exceed the NCLs. Hospital itself.
So what questions do you hope that will next answer them?
Well, so our biggest concern is, the strategy that we have right now works, but it is an outlet for things to move around. We're worried that what if by pulling on 8, it actually pulls the PFAS further north and well 8 becomes. We just, long term, we just don't know how the aquifer is acting. So one of the things that we need to do is do a little bit more of a hydrogeological study, which we can get funded through a grant at PCA to find out, kind of like with the Twisma, how is this stuff moving around? If this moves north and then it becomes more contaminated, how do we think that movement is, and would it be worthwhile to maybe just drill another well further north of treatment plant 2? To then do a raw water feed in and keep blending across 3 wells to keep those PFAS levels where the EPA needs to be. If we get to that, kind of what, like I said, one of the first things we want to do is make sure we're optimizing our system so that we can lean on the wells that have the least issues, but come up with a game plan for finding out where the plume is at, which the MPCA is working on as well, and then find out if there's strategies other than treatment, which is incredibly expensive. Perhaps there's something we can do with blending until the technology gets to a point where we can put in filter in without having a massive increase in rates. That's the biggest concern too, is just the cost impacts on our rate payers, how we deal with all of it. But we're just trying to balance so many different things, and having them kind of look at and evaluate those different options seems like a good strategy. If I knew that the testing that we've done today will just stay that way for the next 20 years, then there's not too much to worry about. But given that the aquifer flows, we just want to be prepared for the eventuality that it changes. But we have more questions than answers at the moment. That's why I'm 6.
I'm still trying to figure out what the state is really at. Or, I'm just looking for like, maybe,
There is a hard number out there that we have to be at this point that goes into effect
5 years from now.
So there's that point of, there will be a maximum, an MCL has been handled up on that point. That we will have to reach, and if we exceed that, to be health advisories issued, notification to everybody. And then there's further step, then you're on a timeline for treatment, you have to get below that level.
And that's all handled through the federal, not the state. The state Department of Health enforces the federal limits on water. So it's the EPA that says. But the other thing with the standard is you need 4 consecutive quarters passed above the MCL. So it's not, you get 1 and then you get a health advisory. It's 1 you monitor and if you get 4 in a row. That's when it triggers the enforcement. It's always important to keep.
Well, my only concern would just be that we spend this money, have all the information. This thing's gonna change.
I don't think it's,
Years, someone can say, oh, just kidding, now we're trying to back down. Cause too much chaos. You know.
yeah, I guess, I don't see that happening.
It's been identified as a potential health risk. You know, pandemic, see these levels, if anything, there's some chance of it getting more extreme.
Yeah.
It's kind of gonna go that way versus waxing, I would have to say. But they're just hoping they are really involved in it and very informational and Megan's phenomenal with that. Had her at a conference and listened for talk there and we met with her. Very, very knowledgeable and the whole picture of it, where it's coming back to the original, where the stuff's coming from, how old these chemicals are and timelines all the way up to stuff. Very knowledgeable on the whole spectrum of
Wouldn't there
it.
be an argument, but for the company following the move? They're always talking.
They're in charge of making sure the aquifer doesn't get heated. Because that is environmental, but not health issues. That's all Department of Health. And the Department of Health is only has jurisdiction over public water system. They don't have jurisdiction over private wells.
So who's tracking this?
PCA is what the state will be on. And they have started consulting here. So I'm expecting a report from them later this year. They're going to start. They said that they were planning. Actually, that's what I'm planning on. So the other reason we wanted to start working now is the PCA does have a grant program that will public water do the planning design of whatever solutions. And let me get placeholder or needs that would pay for hydrogeological study, that would pay for any borings that we need to do at wells. And ultimately that would pay for any filtering. So that's fine. And if we get it now, I think we're kind of ahead of the game. Rather than if we wait a couple of years, I think everybody's going to get more competitive.
But yeah, because rather all of you, like, because they're maybe the way up and everything.
They know the lingo. They know they
They're
know
going to do their way over. That everything understand. Awful thing. But they had to be held through the public, and I think that the public is actually our actions show the public we are not taking crazy. That turns later. And I'm glad you're right there.
The idea is once we pay this 14,000 to help us get started, and then we're going to apply. The Pebbles apply for this grant. That would pay for like some hydrogeological stuff. That's what I'll say. So, a lot of this paid for through various programs. But to try to do something forward now, figure out what do we put into the grant? What do we ask for?
The technical advisor on our end, it's so new and so kind of complicated, I guess, of how this working that every time we talk about it, everybody should let's more new stuff about this. It's been very, very helpful in getting us up to speed.
I think it becomes important to not push the cart down the cold. You know, I think, yeah, I agree with Jack. It's not, we gotta do now so people see that we are proactive and react, well, we kind of react to it. But still, if we move forward now, it needs to give us a chance to just do a little bit more than we will next time. And yes, the state, federal government, they're going to change the
Volunteer motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the law dash 24-15. Dust management. Action plan. All in favor, signal by saying aye. 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 Motion carries. Credit application.
Yes, Mr. Chair, so memorandum 24-16 in your packets, approving the economic development writer for 2024. Staff have been working closely with Glenn Metalcraft to qualify them for continued economic development writer, which the commission had approved back in November of 2022. Glenn Metalcraft has completed all the necessary paperwork. Their application has been approved by SIPA as well. Assuming that we allocate 20% administration fee, the pass-through credits to Glen Metal for 2024 are listed in the table. And again, this is a credit that SIPA issues cost, which we would then pass through to Glen Metal as part of our economic development program. These credits are updated every January, so just like we do with the cogen tariffs going forward. With the advertising program, we would have to update those here. Again, SIPA has also reviewed Glen Metalcraft's application. It has been encrypted. So this staff are requesting the commission to approve the economic development rider for 2024 that we can then issue to.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve 24-16. Okay. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Memo 24-17, we did the bid opening for the meter cutover phase, or part of phase 1. That bid opening occurred on June 13th, 2023, and was conducted by DER. They reviewed the bids for completeness, and their recommendation is attached. We only had one bid that came from Granite Electric, and then DGR's award recommendation letter is in your packet. As they show, the responsive bid was for $279,196.06. We are recommending that that bid be approved. The only thing I would like to add to that is DGR has had conversations with Granite Electric, and Granite Electric had misread the work scope a little bit, and they were able to reduce that by about $52,000. Given the rules associated with public bidding, the commission would have to prove it at the full amount as filed, but I just want to let you know that we would be following up with a change order. He got up to $52,000 in identified savings DGR. Granted, define what this amount is. It's, although you have to approve it for that full amount, it will be less.
Okay, that's the recovery. You want to open up the bids again?
We only have,
I mean,
no, DGR is not recommending that. We don't know that we would get.
I mean, almost the second way is if all change orders would go up.
right. That's what you're.
Yeah, I will point out that the engineer's estimate on this was about 165,000, so this came in much higher than we expected. However, even before the deduct, the overall program, the overall project is still coming in under budget. So, on this one, it is a big project, you never quite know what you're gonna get, so this did come in higher. But in terms of the overall project financing, they're still in that positive situation. So you're aware.
Second. Motion second to approve on 24-17. Peter, cut over. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 3. What water reconditioning?
This is fair, 2418, the North Water Tower, has gotten to a point where, it is needing some significant, resources put towards it. And so staff have started to reach out, KLM Engineering is the engineering firm that we have primarily worked with on the water tower issues. The North Water Tower, which was originally constructed in 1984, was last fully reconstructed in 1997. So given that most protective coatings are designed to last about 25 years, you can see this type of path is, it's time to do that. Staff have identified, and Scott can speak to this better than I can, you're starting to see where out there. And we obviously do want to protect the assets that we have. So overall, we're very happy that we've been able to go about 27 years with only minor services. It is kind of pretty happy. This would be a next year activity. The reason we're bringing it to you now, it would seem to be prudent to do some inspection work with KLM to find work scopes to be well for bid either late this year or early next year in order to be able to work with construction for the summer of 2025. KLM's proposal is attached. The initial visual inspection is about 1,500. And then the other work on plan specification reviews and construction management operation, obviously going to happen the project moving forward. So I really see this as the first phase, but we wanted to kind of be up front with kind of the overall scope of the effort. We're estimating construction costs for the reconditioning to be on the order of about $550,000 to $650,000. We do have the money set aside in our capital for this fund in cash. I guess my inclination at the moment is to bond for that, but obviously that's something. What staff is recommending to accept KLM's proposal to be the engineer as part of the North Water Tower reconditioning project, which would occur 2025.
I'm sure they.
Water towers?
That's this is that we have is an interior and exterior glass paint, and all gets the same needs that required. I think I'll take it on these bending on the top and climbing stuff. Also, do some stuff down the belt bit. Kind of update on anything there that's lights down. Interior, exterior glass.
It was very mean. Very major.
It'd be pretty similar to what happened in the power now.
That was done in 27.
When was the last time we had a camera go?
It's 2 years. Yeah. Yes, they did. They were estimating for about 5 to 8 years. And so that was done in 2020 is what I remember.
That's what I thought. I was kind of surprised to see this. I thought, oh, I thought we were good.
Well, like I said, what I remember, and I can pull the report, we did it in 2020, they said, we really want to make a plan on this in 5 to 8 years. Well, if we do this next year, that's fine. So, I mean, everything's making sense. I know you voiced some concerns the last couple of years, but
It's sort of starting to, next year, you're really starting to see the well seam starting to rust, or the rust line starting to show on them. Yeah, I mean, I'm not watching it, but we're kind of at the point of, like, we're not gonna gain anything, and just definitely see it up on the pole, but there's just no pain left. And that's where we found in that tail is get as much as we can out of it, but don't go make more work. So I think it's kind of where we're looking at this.
I mean, it's just, the prices are shocking.
It is. It's and you get up there,
Yeah, I've seen the price years ago when we did this last one.
and they get up there on them, they're surprisingly how much bigger they are when they look to the ground. There's a lot of circuits.
That's gonna put, just about, I see they're just got to talk about. I just wonder how much they're. Keep that right. Yeah, right. Yeah, another guy. who went to this, he's doing very well.
No, shouldn't affect any, supply and pressure. We've had it out in the past for inspections, and as I've been here, we've had it down for some time and north end. A little bit of pressure reduction, but nothing significantly that an issue. We had it out for a whole winter, one winter, and there was no issues up there, so may have to a little bit look at maybe. And we'll keep an eye on it, middle of summer, if it gets there, adjusting some watering schedules on some of the bigger uses up there to make sure that we're not. What do they make it done? So, yeah.
They draw out there. And they're talking with the advertising in town.
no, but it would be here.
The irrigation one is a.
So we might have to coordinate with the school district so their irrigation only runs it, but just ensure that they're only runs it.
So we just, this totally.
17.
Then last year we washing on the salt tower.
I know the noise just seems to go.
You know, I think the sheriff with the north end this time.
And this one is pretty plain and bland with the middle one and the south one have and a picture from the tiger of one. Whatever it is, we have one.
20 green.
I think I think we ate that full of the ball and diet, but I think we ate that. That's what I remember it.
That's what I remember. You're in. So again, this is just a very, I just wanted to kind of explain kind of the whole process, as we move forward, we kind of like it. As much of the project, how it works, and approve the bid and all that.
What are they doing for the 59,000?
That's just, yeah, that's just overseeing the project, doing the inspections, coordinating with the subcontractors.
And making sure everything's up to code or up to par as far as safety and then we'll go through all that stuff. All the inspection, bidding.
They have someone on site.
Yes, then if you're, proper paint mixing temperatures, they like daily weather reports, there's quite a bit of criteria in that. Weather reports and metal temperatures, and that was kind of part of the reason on the middle power that took so long was they were fighting weather and cold temperatures, so they would take temperature in the tank to make it floating for good. As each step went, the blasting was all to a certain spec, and then all the steps through there, they were pretty stringent and there quite a lot of inspection through the process of mixing and making sure the materials are right or not, they're kind of through all that type of material stuff.
That's all.
No, a little over my head.
Yeah,
It's a bit of a pretty plan. It's been like that.
Make a motion to approve memorandum 2014.
all right, we have a motion and second for memo 2418 North Water Tower reconditioning. All in favor, signify by saying aye. 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 Motion carries. Moved.
Second.
Being adjourned.